Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Troy Thompson and Monica Adwani with the Get Savvy podcast. And today we have a very special guest, Daniela Acosta-Levin with Levin Insurance down in Florida. Very excited to hear Daniela's story and what makes her awesome. And how's it going, Daniela?
Hey guys, I'm good, and you?
Really excited to have you here with us today.
Yes, I'm excited. I don't get to see you unless it's virtually, so it's nice.
Yeah, and speaking of virtually, that is actually something we kind of wanted to talk to you about how you run your agency and what you do. And I know we have some of the same connections that we have met over the years in insurance, but would you mind telling us, Daniela, how you got into insurance and bring us up to speed to where you are now? And
yeah, definitely. Well, I started my office because I was working for a large insurance company back in the day, and I was seeing all these agents just like do really well. So going around, I was on the road a lot, and as my family kind of evolved into more like, kids and everything, then I realized I couldn't just be away as long as I had to be. And the drive was becoming a little too crazy. And I also kind of started thinking about, what can I do? Why can't I do what they're doing? I can just do my own agency. So I started looking into ways that I could do that, but then contracts were a big issue. So then I initially just went ahead and talked to a couple of friends that were agents, and they told me, well, why don't you just buy a book? So I started in 2018 buying my first book. And then I went, and so it was kind of tricky because it was getting on a bus while it's moving. So you inherit a lot of good things, but the bad things also come with it. So a lot of transitioning, and then in the middle of that, I went and bought another book to add to the mix. So that whole transition period has been the longest thing ever for us. Finally, we're at a point where we are, I think, stable in our team, in our operations. We have like proper SOPs in place and things like that. So it's exciting to see how it's developed, and kind of nice to feel like that part of the business is done, because oh my god, it was quite a ride to get through it.
Oh wow.
Yeah
I'd like to dive into a little bit. Like, everybody says they want to buy a book of business, but that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
How are you able to find the first one and then a second one?
I'm sorry, I missed the part.
How are you able to find a book of business to buy and then find a second one shortly after that?
So a lot of what I've realized in this business, and I think with any business, is connections, networking. A lot of it came from that. So just knowing people, and word of mouth spreads pretty quick. And I also work with a broker who helped me with both acquisitions, but in that, I think he helped me. We found the books, and he just helped me with like the logistical aspect of it, the due diligence and all that. But finding the books, I think, was primarily networking and getting relationships established where people find that, you just kind of say what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve. And then they just kind of, but I know this guy that's trying to sell his book. Are you interested? Yeah. And then you kind of becomes, like it just kind of flows, I guess, in that way. So that's how I found both books. One of them was because it was an agent that I used to visit when I was repping for the company that I worked with. And I heard that he was selling his book, and I remembered it was a good book. So I felt, why not? Let's see what he has. And I had no idea what, multipliers. I had no idea about it, all this stuff. And then suddenly, you buy the book and you're kind of like picked up with the crane and dropped off in the office, and then it's yours. And you're like, oh my God, what do I do? So it was definitely a cool thing to experience. Not easy, but especially because I also had a couple of other employees. So, depending on the acquisition, I had one acquisition with employees included, another one that was solely the book of business. Just the PNC side, he kept it life and health. So, there's agreements in place. There's all kinds of things that have to happen. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Also, the financing of those books, what that looks like, all the paperwork you have to put together. I mean, it's not like a ride in the park, but I feel like it was the right decision and the right way for us to transition into the industry, mostly because also contracts, And one of the misconceptions that I learned pretty quickly was that you don't get guaranteed an appointment just because you buy a book, you know what I mean? So a lot of due diligence does have to go into that, making sure that those relationships are established before you buy the book, so that you don't hit a wall and you're like, oh, that's great, I just bought this book and I automatically get appointed with that company. No, you don't. So yeah, we had to hit a couple of those walls. Get past it.
So how did you incorporate the team and, buying two books from two different realms? How did you come up with now your operations structure, right? Because you mostly have a virtual agency. So how did you kind of like mix it all together and made it work operationally from there?
Okay, so that was also something that I think took a lot of trial and error in a way. Again, getting on a bus while it's moving, operations start day one. It's not like they stop and the agency just waits till you're trained and then, no, you're in it like the minute you step into the office. And so getting to know the current employees, how they operate currently was a big thing for me. Not kind of disturbing everybody and just doing this major overhaul of every operation in the agency was important too, because I wanted to see how things were. Maybe some of them I felt like I needed to keep operation wise, and some of the things I just didn't feel like were being done very efficiently. So that's kind of what I did, is I kind of sat back and just saw. I took a lot of feedback from the existing employees, or if I took them in and learned how they were operating. And then once I knew and had a better idea of how things were done, then I sat a drawing board, I guess, and went back and started establishing, okay, well, I don't like this. I do like this. I think this is a good idea. This is not. How can I change it? But again, I think time was a big issue, because then I was so caught up in you just get caught up in the day-to-day that you really don't set time aside to be able to, look at your operations and how they could be impacting your productivity, really, or hindering it. But yeah, that's kind of what I did. Took a step back, look at everything, and then kind of got rid of things or added things as needed.
Daniela,
a good result. Yeah.
Did you always know you were going to succeed? Because I know of a company rep personally that tried to do the same thing you did. Why don't I just start my own agency? It'll be easy.
Oh no, yeah.
And that person failed pretty, remarkably, and then actually had to go back to being a carrier rep again.
Yeah.
And was it eye-opening, or was it exactly what you thought? Or
definitely not. I think everybody has this picture of what being an entrepreneur is, right? And what running an agency, and everybody's like, oh, I like kind of what I said. If they can do it, I can too. It seems so easy. What they don't see is all the stuff you have to do in addition to the day-to-day, right? There's all this stuff that goes into it, as you guys know. So I feel like, I guess the answer to that would be no, it was not easy. Did I always know I was going to succeed? No, there's a lot of second guessing myself, a lot of learning the hard way, a lot of decisions. But at the same time, I felt like I'm not one to give up easy. Like, I feel like the only way that you fail is if you give up. And if you keep going, even if it gets tough, as long as you keep going and you pivot, whether you pivot the right way or not, that's another story. But as long as you have some kind of a plan in place, I didn't foresee myself failing, and I have solid support from my husband too. I feel like he's a great supporter of mine, and he always says, Daniela, there's no way you're going to fail unless, everybody in the industry goes under and you're just like crying in your bedroom in the corner. Like, there's no reason why you would fail. get up, get going. If things start going down and you don't sell or whatever, we'll find a way. It's just kind of standing and getting through the fire.
Does your husband work with you in insurance?
He actually still works for the company, and so it's been an interesting mix because we've both had a lot in common, going home and talking about the industry, and so that's kind of nice because he understands to an extent. He understands what I do and how I do it, but he hasn't had experience on the agency side, so it's really been all me. He's just kind of my cheerleader, and I'm his cheerleader for his thing. So it's kind of nice,
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, yeah.
I feel like my wife, and that is not always easy.
It's not.
Because, we come home and then you're talking about it. At least you have two different companies to talk about, right? Rather than everything the same. But I'm guessing you have to put things in place where you're not talking insurance every now and then, right?
Yes. Yeah, and I feel like there's always that, well, husband, wife, like with any relationship, I feel like there's always that, like, I think you should do blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, no, that wouldn't work at all. Like, just, stay in your lane. I'll stay in mine, like we had to kind of set some boundaries around it so that like it was more a lot of support rather than you need to do this or you're not doing this right, no accusatory stuff like that, because then of course then it starts to affect our relationship, and I just didn't want that. So I think it's been good to keep things separately and just have him as my cheerleader. I think it's great.
Yeah. Compared to other people, Daniela, you started with having to worry about not just growing new business, but also keeping, growing the renewals and making sure that book stayed, afloat, to make sure you're not losing your investment. So what are some of the, you say, lessons learned and techniques that you have learned in order to increase that retention and to make sure that you maintain, that book of business along with your new, business overall within the agency?
Yeah. So for that, I think for the first book, I think keeping the main employee was actually a pretty good thing, because I think everybody kind of connected already through the years with her. And obviously they, I come in, I start picking up the phone and people are like, who are you? Why are you picking up the phone? So I think maintaining the status quo a little bit, even though there was a big change going on internally, like maintaining the status quo and making it such a smooth transition that people don't freak out was very crucial to our success and the retention of the business. Because nobody was really like, I didn't send this big mass email to everybody, hey, new management, here I am, Daniela, and none of that happened. Like what I did was I was in the office, I was taking phone calls myself and just kind of slowly introducing myself, getting my name out there slowly to people and getting to know them without saying, who am I? None of that, just customer service. Basically, I immersed myself in the customer service role a little bit, and that helped me gain their trust. And then as time went by, I feel like people started asking for me, and not that I want everybody to just go to me, but I wanted to then start telling people. Then I started telling people like, okay, oh yeah, oh, you bought the agency? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's great. Where's the other guy? And I was like, oh, he just decided, it was his time, whatever, changed industries. So it was more like that smooth transition rather than a, hey guys, I'm new here and what's up, like it wasn't like that. So I think that helped a lot. And I think the girls in the office had a lot to do with that. Smooth transition too. They really contributed to that by not making, by just kind of letting it flow the way it was supposed to, as opposed to shocking people. Yeah. So I think that definitely helped. With the second book, there was no employees involved. The demographics of that second book were different than the first. There was a lot of old school people that I acquired from that second book, and they did voice that they would have liked more of a transition. So I did keep the previous owner like assisting me with some things for a certain period of months, so that also helped, because then he is the one that kind of introduced me, because they were like a little bit concerned, they were concerned, like, who is this younger lady that's coming in and taking over, like, does she know what she's doing, because he was an older gentleman, and that was something that they felt came with experience. And here I am looking like I'm 12 and buying a book, it doesn't go very well. So I think, so it was a little different with each one.
And Daniela, you use one of our virtual professionals, Manal, and we were just wondering what types of services and tasks that you have Manal do for your agency.
One of the things I was going to say, so as we were growing and leaving the transition mode, going more into the growth mode, then we're like, okay, next step is what? Scaling. We need to hire. We need to think about this, right? So yes, so I came across, Monica, Savvital, you, and everything, and it has honestly been such a great thing, because we didn't really consider that as an option before. I was going through the regular channels, trying to hire, trying to, interview 10,000 people, and it was just exhausting, time consuming, like just not very conducive to anything. Like I literally did it for over a year, and it led me to a bunch of unqualified applicants. So then I started, when I was able to get the opportunity to talk to you guys and really see how your process is and everything, then I loved it, because it took so much off my plate. It was so much easier. It was already kind of done for me on the HR side, which helped. So my experience with Manal has been awesome. Even I was going to mention too, we had a transition from the previous lady. We had worked with Alicia, and it transitioned to Manal, and they were just both great. Even the transition was so smooth that I know that if I would have had to go through that transition through regular avenues of hiring and stuff like that, it would have been a completely different story, So very good experience with Manal. She's one of the things I like the most is through the interview process. Something that stood out about her was like how she wasn't afraid of how, like, the way she spoke was just very genuine, and I really like that, because I'm the same way. Like I don't hide. I'm not very like, preppy professional I'm just more informal, and she didn't seem like she had a problem with saying how she thought or what she felt, and I like that, because I like people to be honest like that. So that really appealed to me. So when we were doing the transition of the from one VP to another, a virtual professional to another, I felt like she would have been a great replacement for Alicia. So I think that was really good. A lot of the things that has stood out with me with virtual professionals, I don't know exactly what it is. I feel like from our experience in the interviews that we've had previously through regular avenues versus this, they're all very, very educated, very well spoken. And there's a very distinct feature that I find when I've interviewed the virtual professionals versus standard applicants, which is there's like a sense of eagerness and, I don't know, work ethic that you just can't train. You can't train people to be ethical, or you either are or you're not. I don't know. That's just what I believe. But like, she's brought initiative that previous employees that I've had and no longer have never brought to the table. So she's brought good initiative. She's brought effort, to the team. She's very eager to learn. She's open to criticism. Like, it's not like you have to watch what you say, Obviously I deliver it like I'm supposed to, I'm never going to be mean to people, but still, there's people that even no matter how nice you say it, like, it's just like, oh, they take it personal. And no, like, she's not like that at all. And so I really come to appreciate her as an addition to our team. It's been awesome.
Oh, that's so great to hear.
That's
Sorry, that was a
amazing.
long answer.
Was it ever a challenge to like integrate her with some of the other employees in your agency?
No, so we do have some practices we have in place because we are already very remote by nature. Then it wasn't a challenge because we have things in place to help us maintain that team culture. So we use Slack, so we're all constant communication and collaboration through there. We also have cloud-based systems, so anything that we have to do is just always, everybody's current and up to date, and it's live, and everything is easy. I did an introduction, like a Zoom call, with the team, and we were able to all meet each other and just kind of get to know each other a little bit. And then on the Slack conversations, it's not just all like professionals, we try to we have a channel called the Random that we just kind of like random conversation, like how was your weekend, regular stuff, like as if we were in the office, because we have to. And we also do weekly calls or, check-ins with the team so that if there's something, and even when I'm not around, I've noticed like they still communicate really well together. And again,
right.
The fact that she has not been afraid to, speak up if she needs to, like if she needs something done. Hey guys, you haven't checked the call log. I need you to check the call, like things like that. It just keeps the dynamics good. So yeah, it's been great.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What would you say? Will you continue to grow your agency virtually since you already have like that base? Or do you think, a 50-50 makes more sense? What do you think the agency of the future looks like?
Well, we are definitely on scaling mode right now. So yes, I do plan to have more virtual professionals added to the mix. And I think the goal is to kind of ladder it in a way where we have a couple licensed, my 2 licensed girls right now. They will grow in their role and they'll need more support as they grow because they'll be handling other responsibilities. So then I think eventually the goal is to have somebody under them, and then even somebody, if Manal continues to grow in her role, somebody under her that she will manage, and that will allow us to scale and focus really on the productive items, like the sales, the retention, and things like that. Even the marketing, a lot of the support that I've needed personally, and that I will need in the future, is going to be geared towards like me getting out there and not being involved in the day-to-day as much. And in order for me to do that, is I need my routine items to be handled by somebody else. I have to be able to delegate it, but I can't delegate it to somebody that's overwhelmed at the office. So then when they need support, then there's somebody else under that can help them, and then they're going to grow and get, what I mean? It's just kind of like ladders that way. But we've managed to create a solid, with the help actually of the virtual professional, we've managed to create a solid training and onboarding practice. And I feel like that's been really important. We also, before even onboarding somebody new, we did sit down. I did have a consultant who was amazing. And so, well, her, Monica Cassidy. And so Cassidy and I sat down and did like a who does what chart. So everybody was aware and boundaries were very clear on who did what task. So there was no like, wait, do I do this? What if, no, she's got it. No, and then it's like conflict. So what we had to do that before onboarding the person. And then once we onboarded the person, we also had them help us with the training modules or whatever. So there's like guides and reference sheets, videos, and all the stuff needed to get somebody else in whenever the time comes, So we'll be ready for that.
How do we get Cassidy our belly? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Give her a shout out. How do people reach Cassidy?
How? Oh, yeah. She reached out through social media and we connected immediately. And it actually started following a lot of her stuff. And I felt like, again, same thing. I'm very drawn to authenticity and genuine, people. So I feel like that was my appeal to her. Like I basically felt like she was herself, and that man, I could sit down and have a conversation with this girl, and I feel like we can go have a drink, it's great. So it was very comfortable from the very beginning, even though it wasn't really a business relationship yet. And then we went from, oh, she's helping me with her program, and I signed up for her program, and we did like the consulting aspect of things, to like just now, like it's like a friendly, great relationship. Like I love it. It's great.
That's awesome. And that's unburden your business.
Unburden your business. Yeah.
She's the bomb.
Yeah. She's
and
really great.
Yeah, it's helped us also. Again, a lot of times when you're an entrepreneur, you're so, again, caught up in the day to day. There's like no space in my head for anything else. So like, it helps you pause, take a step back, and have somebody look from the outside in and tell you and guide you on, hey, you're doing this well, but this could be better. And same thing I did when I kind of landed on the acquisition, but it's easy to do it at the beginning because you're not taking on a bunch of responsibilities. But once you're like in it and you're like, oh my God, every day's an overwhelm, you really can't think straight. So having somebody else from the outside with experience in the agency side and everything was, I think, a pivot point for us to be able to get to where we are now, which is growth mode.
Growth mode. You plan on buying another agency?
It's not another question. I think I've established pretty solid connections with the financing side of it, which I feel really comfortable with. If I needed to do that, I think right now our focus is more on expanding to other states and diversifying our book. And then
love Florida?
Huh?
You don't love Florida?
Oh no. Florida is a little bit of a hot mess right now.
Every single agent, there's not one agent owner in Florida that says how great it is in Florida. They all say the exact same thing. They're like, be my guest. If you want to come to Florida and start an agency, go for it. More power to you, but you're going to regret it.
I know. I mean, there's seriously, but see, I see it as an opportunity. Like if we stick it, this is the way I see it. Like, man, we made it through COVID. We were just starting. We were a mess. We made it through COVID. We made it through, we're making it through this disaster of market we have in Florida. I mean, can't get worse than this. Okay. So we're gonna, it's only up from here. So we're gonna be, I think for the sake of value for our book, it needs to expand to, and I'm focusing more on commercial lines. So I'm focusing on targeting specifically designers, builders, and real estate investors. So that's going to lead us to more of a commercial route. And then we'll cross-sell and round up accounts, through the personal side. But I feel like that's what I needed. That changes like what I need right now. Get away from that. And then in the future, if there's a book that meets that criteria, then yes, we would be probably interested in pulling it in and adding it to our book. But yeah, a lot of due diligence goes into books. So I think right now the biggest thing is
be intentional.
Internally getting everything, stabilized, and then we can grow through on a solid base rather than a wiggly one.
Nice deep foundation.
Yes, setting those pillars.
100%.
Love it. The 8 pillars, huh? Look at you, Daniela.
Oh my God. I really have evolved a lot. Like you talk to anybody that met me, like I don't even think my parents thought I could handle like being a business owner. I don't know. Maybe they did. Or maybe I'm just saying that. But like I feel like when you start a new business and you venture, like you never have so much you lose so much faith in yourself in the journey. Like you lose you don't trust your decisions, you're second guessing your every move. And it's like having a community of agents like yourselves and again Cassidy and all the women that are part of her group, and even relationships that I built through, like we used to in Florida, we used to get together and we call it beers bitching. Like we would just get together and with a group of agents and just get together for beers and complaining about insurance industry a little bit. And it was a lot of fun. And it was, a little bit of agencies from commercials, personal, some were captive, some were not, and you just get to build that support that you need to get through the journey, because it ain't easy.
That's incredible. And I think you deserve a lot of credit yourself for having the faith in yourself. And like you said earlier, just to keep plugging along, even though you're doubting yourself, just keep showing up and good things are going to happen, right?
Yes.
You can cry in the corner or you can get up and keep working.
Keep it up, keep it going. And I'm learning a lot of great skills too, you know, great skills that I think we know, but until somebody like drills them into your head, like again, simple aspects of things like time blocking, making a list, you know, like having an SOP, like, I mean, a process for whatever you're doing. They're so like, yeah, okay, I know that, but doing them and actually having somebody or a community hold you accountable, that's, I think, key to also making sure that those things get done. So yeah, hopefully.
One final question, Daniela. For those people that are out there thinking about getting a virtual professional with Savvital, what could you tell them? What kind of advice can you give them?
I'm always a fan. So I think the biggest advice, one thing I think is key. Don't think that just because you hire a virtual professional, there's no training involved and you're just going to be like, hire, and then just sit back and wait for things to just be amazing. No. Key thing is there is a certain investment of time you need to put in at the beginning, but it pays off 100%, 1,000%. Like, we started with a lot of like, you know, sharing screens, Zoom, supervise. We themed the week. This week, this is all we're gonna do. This next thing, this is all we're gonna do, until they perfect the craft, right? And then once they perfect the craft, then you can take a step back, let them do their thing, just supervise, and then you take another step back, and then suddenly they're doing all these things that you didn't even, and you're like, how in a month you're like doing things that it took me like a year to learn. So they're very, very savvy. They're very, you know, I felt like they were very, very good additions. And so my recommendation would be just have a solid expectation and onboarding process, or how you want to go about training them, even an outline, like just anything that will help guide through that, for at least, I say at least a month, you know, and then you'll be prepared to get them on, get them trained, and then they'll take stuff off your back.
Fantastic.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Daniela, so much for being here today, for sharing your becoming story, which is a little different than most people, right? Most people start from scratch, but you went all head in, buying books and doing it differently. So I think we can all learn a thing or two from you. And thanks for sharing. This was great.
Thank you for having me. I love talking to you guys, and I'm just happy that you guys allowed me the opportunity to share a little bit of my.
You're an inspiration, Danielle, and I love, by the way, watching your son in his karate tournaments.
They're the cutest thing when they're all bundled in their little cushion pads. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
If anybody wants to reach you, simply go ahead. Let us.
Well, my agency is the Levin Insurance Group. We write in Florida, Montana, and Nevada very soon. We focus on interior designers, builders, real estate investors, and if you want to quote, you can reach me by calling us or emailing us or whatever at 954-561-6501. That's the office number. Or you can email me, which is Daniela@levinins.com. I can send some of that information too if you guys would like.
Fantastic. And if you're trying to sell your book and it fits your demographic, reach her too.
Yes, you never know. Sometimes it meets exactly what I need, and maybe that's another path to growth.
I do know somebody with Personal Lines book in Florida, but you probably wouldn't want it.
No, I'm trying to get rid of mine. No, I'm just kidding. I love my clients, but we had to weed off a lot to get where we were at. So yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for listening to our show today. Have a great day, and thanks so much, Daniela.
Thank you, guys. Nice to see you again.
Nice seeing you.